Okay, welcome back to the review for Chapter 5. This section's on factoring. The very first thing that you need to remember when you look at factoring is to take out the greatest common factor. So it should be the very first thing you try to do all the time. I've put out a couple of easy ones here. We've got 3x plus 6. You should be able to see that in both of these terms, 3 is a common factor. And the question I always teach you is what do you multiply 3 by to get 3x? And what do you multiply 3 by to get positive 6? And there's your factors. 3 is your greatest common factor. X plus 2 is the other factor. Same thing happens here. If you look at all three terms, 6 is common. That leaves you with x squared plus 2x minus 1. And don't forget to put the 1 in there. Okay, so greatest common factor. The other kind of question is factoring a trinomial without a leading coefficient in front. So just 1x squared plus x minus 12. In cases like that, you're asked to multiply to find the numbers, the products, or the factors of negative 12, the last term, that also add to equal the coefficient of the middle term, which in this case, even though it's not written there, is 1. So we're looking for two numbers that multiply to give negative 12 and add to give positive 1. So if those numbers come to your head, great. If not, in this case, you have to make a list. A positive and a negative number to multiply to a negative that add to a positive. So I could have negative 1 times 12, and they could have negative 2 times 6, negative 3 times 4, negative 4 times 3. Oh, wait a minute. I can see right here two numbers that multiply to give negative 12 and add to give 1. So I use those to break up the middle term. I still have x squared, but now instead of plus 1x, I'm going to write minus 3x plus 4x. Means the same thing. It's equal to positive 1x, and then I subtract 12. Now it's a question of factoring by grouping. What's common in the first two, and what's common in the second two? So in my first term, or first set here of two terms, I've got x that's common to both. That leaves me with x minus 3. And as soon as I know that, I rewrite that, and I've got x minus 3 again. Notice I left a fair bit of space there. Question is, what do I multiply x by to get 4x? It's got to be a positive 4. Is 4 times negative 3 equal to negative 12? Absolutely. So now my common factor is x minus 3, and the leftover pieces make up my other factor, x and 4. So x minus 3 and x plus 4. If, on the other hand, I've got a number out in front, then I do one extra step. Instead of finding two numbers that multiply to give the last, I find two numbers that multiply to give first times last. So they multiply to equal 12, and they still add to equal the middle. In this case, it's going to be negative 3 and negative 4. Two negatives multiply to positive, but add to a negative 7. And then the rest is the same. First number gets written once, 6x squared. I break up the middle using those two. So minus 3x minus 4x plus 2. Factor by grouping. You can pause this anytime and get caught up. I look for the common factor of the first two. In this case, I've got 3x. That leaves me with 2x minus 1. Leave some space. 2x minus 1. Then ask yourself, what do you multiply 2x by to get negative 4x? And it has to be a negative 2. And does negative 2 times negative 1 equal positive 2? You guessed it, absolutely. So 2x minus 1 as your common factor. And the leftover bits out in front, 3x minus 2. Okay, and there are our factors. Don't forget, though, that sometimes you always look for the greatest common factor, and sometimes it's there. So always look. In this case, 4, 4, 4 comes out. Then I've got 10x squared minus x minus 3, and I'll let you take it from there. Okay. Two numbers that multiply to give negative 30 and add to give negative 1. There you go. All right, good luck.